Before this video starts, I just want to give a massive shout out to all my channel members. If you want to receive a shout out, then become a channel member today and you'll be shown on screen like all these other channel members here. Anyways, enjoy the video. Mina de Nyanko Daisensu, or in English, Battle Cats with Everyone, is the now defunct PC version of the Battle Cats. This version was similar to the mobile version, but had a few differences between the two. The biggest of which is the PvP mode, which allowed players across Japan, or the globe rather, to face off with each other, but this version also had exclusive units not present in any other versions of the game. In this video, I will cover every single PC exclusive unit that existed. I made two older videos covering the PC Ubers, but I feel like I could remake these videos with a higher standard of quality, as well as being in one singular video. This video will detail each unit's abilities, strengths, and weaknesses, and I will give an overall ranking of every unit at the end of this video. Also, for every unit I look at, I will be using their level 30 stats with max treasures, and I will be looking at them through the context that these units were added to the mobile version. So if you enjoyed looking at these now forgotten units, then why not give this video a like, and if you enjoy what you see on the channel, then why not subscribe? Also, comment down below on the unit you thought was the most interesting. I'd like to know your answers. Also, massive shout out to Xerpy for creating the BCPC pack that makes this gameplay footage possible. Their socials are down below. Anyways, let's begin. Bunbun Monger Prototype is a unit unlocked after beating Fukuoka, or Japan, and in order to evolve it into Bunbun Monger Devil, you have to complete Empire of Cats Chapter 3 and get them to level 20. Bunbun here is a rusher unit with an attack of 6,800 and a health stat of 25,500 with 3 knockbacks and 23 speed. They have a cooldown of 124.53 seconds and cost 3,333 cents to send out with 200 range and a 100% chance to survive a lethal strike. This unit is somewhat useful as an early game rusher, but once you get a Wake of Bahamut, then there is literally no reason to use this unit. If we even just compare them to Ultimate Mecha Bun, who is considered one of the worst legend units in the game, they still have 3 times the health and deal slightly more damage with a much faster recharge time. The 100% survive chance is nice, but in most situations, it won't be able to even get a hit in. This unit works fine for the early game, but once you start getting other rushers, there really isn't any reason to use this unit at all. Catmaid is the VIP Uber for the Dynamites. She is a mid-range unit who deals massive damage against floating and zombie enemies, while also being slow and freeze immune with Z-Killer. She has a base damage of 48,450, allowing her to deal 193,800 damage against her targets. She has a base DPS of 6,031, meaning she has a DPS of 25,204 against her targets. She has a health pool of 122,400 with 2 knockbacks and a speed of 6. She costs 3,450 to send out and has a cooldown of 64.53 seconds. She has a TBA of 5.67 seconds and an attack frequency of 8.03 seconds. This unit has a rather high base health pool, and this usually would be good, but with only 2 knockbacks, she can't really position herself to be in a safer position. Their immunities actually help out a lot with a ton of matchups, including against Zerzeal, Queen Bee, I Am Face, and Xeonal. She does have somewhat of a long force swing of 2.4 seconds. This makes her prone to missing her attacks sometimes. Her range of 260 also makes her very vulnerable to enemy attacks, only outranging enemies like Lord Gravy by 10. Her high base health does help with this issue, but it is still important to note. Her freeze and slow immunity would make her a decent option against Henry and Crockley. For example, in Steamworks Limited, the level consists of nothing but zombies and Henry. Her high base health means she won't get killed by Henry and can deal tons of damage against the zombies featured. Overall, this unit is pretty good, having a high base health to take hits and is able to deal decent damage against her targets, but her low range and somewhat long force swing do make her prone to enemy onslaughts and missing her attacks respectively. War God Tadakatsu is the PC exclusive War God unit, and their kit is very different from most of the other War Gods. This unit has a standing range of 600 and has an LD spread of 450 to 850 with 44,200 health and dealing 40,800 damage with 3,409 DPS. They also have a speed of 7, a TBA of 7.93 seconds, and cost 6,000 to send out. They also have a cooldown of 224 seconds or 3 minutes 44 seconds with only 1 knockback. They also resist black enemies, giving them an effective 221,000 health against them. They also have the Base Destroyer ability, making them the only other unit in Battle Cats history to have this ability, along with Warlock and Pierre. Against bases, they deal 204,000 damage against them. This unit's stats are extremely similar to Mega Aphrodite, as both share the same attack, health, speed, LD, and standing range, along with the same TBA. However, Tadakatsu costs more, has less knockbacks, and changes the ability from massive damage to resist with the addition of knockback immunity and base destroyer. The main use for this unit is to use them as a unit to blow up the base before he dies. Do you know those strategies in like Vulcanizer where you would stack LD attackers like Aphrodite to snipe the base before killing the Manic Eraser? Well, this unit was built for this exact purpose. This unit can work fine as a generalist LD attacker, but their main issue is that he cannot be repositioned thanks to his singular natural knockback and knockback immunity, meaning this guy needs more protection to get full use out of. If you lose one, then you're going to be waiting a long time before you get another one of these guys out onto the battlefield, so you really want to save this guy for when you get close to the enemy base. Resisting black enemies isn't too useful unless they're tanking attacky, since you really don't want anything to reach this guy anyways, but it is useful if you're getting attacked by black enemies. This unit is pretty alright as an LD base destroyer, but that's really all it should be used for, since their high cost to send them out and their extremely long cooldown means you're usually only getting one out in the usual match at most. Wise Emperor Noble is the PC exclusive Uber for the Galaxy Gals, and her toolkit is pretty okay. She is a unit who freezes angel enemies for 1.92 seconds, knocks them back, and gains double cash when defeating an enemy. She resists angel enemies, meaning she has a base health of 42,500 and has an effective 212,500 health against angels. She deals 48,450 damage while having 3,993 DPS. She costs 4,125 to send out with a cooldown of 87.87 seconds and has a speed of 13 with 4 knockbacks. This unit has a TBA of 9.67 seconds. This unit has a range of 375, allowing her to outrange many angel enemies, including Chick-fil-A and Sleipnir by 5 and 3 range respectively. This gives you an option for being able to more easily control these enemies by knocking them back and freezing them. Her resist allows her to take some damage to ensure she either survives the onslaught or to give her enough time to land an attack. She's an okay angel crowd controller, but her main issue is her long attack frequency of 12.3 seconds. This really only gives her an uptime of 15%, meaning any enemy she freezes can still have a chance to push and reach her before she could freeze again. Though if you have additional support with units like Ramen and for things like Angelic Gories and Borafin specifically, you also have Sanzo to keep these enemies at bay while you wait for Noble to attack again. Her offensive stats are pretty okay. Dealing nearly 50,000 damage per hit can leave a dent into the enemy's health pool, and the double cash is always a nice bonus, especially since not many units have this ability in the first place. Overall, this unit's a decent anti-angel, being able to momentarily stop offensive threats, but her long attack frequency can leave her vulnerable if you don't have other means to stall these angel enemies. Nuclear Blade Dragon King Beerus is the exclusive Uber for the Dragon Emperors, being resistant against aliens, wave immune, and having a 50% chance to knock back alien enemies. He has a base health of 76,500 health, with an effective health of 382,500 against aliens. They deal 38,522 damage and have a DPS of 5,778. They have a standing range of 450, a cooldown of 151.2 seconds, a speed of 5, and an attack frequency of 6.67 seconds. They also only have 2 knockbacks and cost 6,300 to send out. This unit, despite being my favorite design-wise due to the similarities it has with the almighty King Ghidorah, it's not that great of a unit. This unit is pretty good for alien-focused stages, like Into the Future and Cats of the Cosmos thanks to his natural tankiness against them, but outside of that, you won't really be using this unit. At most, you would use this unit as a wave immune attacker if you lack other options, but once you get to stuff like Octopus and Dancer, this unit's usage falls off hard. It suffers the same curse that most other Dragon Emperors have, these being way too slow of a unit with such a high cost and not having the stats to back that cost up. Also, a 50% chance to knock back aliens isn't that good, because unlike other statuses, knockback doesn't last too long, and you mainly use it to give you some breathing room. For an Uber, you would expect them to have a 100% chance to knock back, but only having a 50% chance to knock back is not enough to really make use of the ability, especially since the unit would effectively knock back every 13.34 seconds. This makes it hard to utilize. Beerus also has an absurdly long force swing of 4.17 seconds, making him very prone to missing attacks. In short, if you're that desperate for an anti-alien, just roll the Elemental Pixies or Dark Heroes, because you have a 90% chance to get something that's better for aliens, especially the Elemental Pixies. Issamboshi is the exclusive Uber for the Ultra Souls. Now you may ask yourself, don't we already have Issamboshi, the little angel traitless rusher unit, yeah? Well, this Isomboshi came first and has a completely different role compared to the actual mobile version of Isomboshi. This Isomboshi is able to weaken angel enemies for 4 seconds. This makes them a good debuffer against enemies like Angelic Gori and Borfim, especially since this guy is really spammable. They only have a cooldown of 6.53 seconds, though you won't be using them for offense, as for their damage is only 4,760 with 587 DPS. They have a range of 220 and a speed of 5 and an attack frequency of 8.1 seconds. They also have 3 knockbacks, meaning they'll usually get knocked back by every hit. This unit is a simple angel debuffer, but the fact that they have a 100% chance to do it, along with the fact that they're very spammable, means they can easily shut down many threats. This little guy is useful as an angel debuffer and is recommended for most angel stages. Funeral Storm Batter Haruhime is the evolved form of Isomboshi, and this unit changes their roles entirely, going from a spammable debuffer to a backline support unit with the addition of knockback and wave immunity. Thanks to their massive 550 range, you can use them to help damage enemies from afar, and if the enemy happens to be an angel enemy, you can weaken and knock them back, making it easier for your units to handle. Their damage is okay, dealing 39,100 damage with 4,130 DPS, though their attack frequency does go up slightly to now having an attack frequency of 9.47 seconds. This unit also costs a good amount to send out, costing 5,100 cents to send out. This unit has a good health stat for being a backliner, having 78,200 health and has 3 knockbacks. They have a cooldown of 137.87 seconds and a speed of 5. The weaken, unlike the first form, is meant to be a small bonus more than anything. The wave immunity is the biggest thing here. Seeing as this unit has 550 range, they can comfortably sit in the back and deal occasional chip damage against any wave enemy. Though for angel enemies specifically, Yukan isn't the most difficult enemy in the world, but would be super useful for Rajakan. Since Rajakan can easily blitz past your units, having a wave immune anti-angel who can weaken is pretty useful, especially since this unit doesn't have a blind spot. This unit does somewhat suffer from their long attack frequency, but when this unit is viable, they do put in the work. Though their somewhat long cooldown does make it difficult to build a stack, it isn't so long that you'll be waiting for an eternity to get another one out onto the field. It is best to treat this unit somewhat like a shorter range Cosmo in terms of anti-angel support, who just so happens to be wave immune. Type Monshiro, or Type Swallowtail, is the exclusive Uber for the Dark Heroes. She has 430 range, deals 43,010 damage, has 41,650 health, and has a DPS value of 4,032. She has a speed of 12, a cooldown of 104.53 seconds, and costs 4,470 cents to send out. She also has an attack frequency of 10.67 seconds and has 5 knockbacks. Since she is a dark hero, her abilities change depending on what form you use. The first form is wave immune and has a 50% chance to knock back aliens. The second form slows aliens for 3.6 seconds and has a 50% chance to summon a level 3 wave, giving her 302 piercing range. Generally, the second form is better for crowd controlling aliens, since the slow allows her to halt enemy movement to a standstill, and with the wave, she can hit any super backliner aliens like Overseer Nyandam and Calamari. Her wave damage is also pretty good, dealing 86,020 damage, and since the wave has a 50% chance to activate, her DPS is effectively 6,048. However, her rather long attack frequency means she only has a slow uptime of 33%. Her health is also pretty low, but thanks to her high knockback count of 5, most hits will knock her back, usually being able to bring her to a safer spot. Her cooldown isn't too long, but it isn't that fast either. The only time where you would really use her first form is when you're in desperate need for a wave immune attacker, since knockback against aliens isn't too useful, as previously discussed in the Beerus section. This unit overall is an okay alien crowd controller who can put up some decent damage per hit, especially if she activates a wave, but her stats don't really make her stand out all too much from most alien crowd controllers. Odin End, based on the All-Father of the Norse gods and the God of War and Death, is the exclusive Uber from the Almighties. Odin resists all enemy types except traitless, having an effective health of 272,000 against treasure traits and 217,600 health against treasureless traits. Odin deals 35,700 damage with 6,155 DPS. Odin has a cooldown of 124.53 seconds, costs 4,500 cents to send out, and has a range of 445. He has a speed of 14, an attack frequency of 5.8 seconds, and 4 knockbacks. Odin is also immune to knockback and has a 100% chance to knock back every non-traitless enemy. Odin has some amazing health against a huge majority of the enemies in this game, and his offensive stats are also pretty good. Odin's cooldown is fine enough, and his range of 445 is a pretty good standing range. Odin's knockback immunity is also super useful due to the fact that Odin has a decently long force swing of 3.1 seconds, so the knockback immunity helps in case you are fighting various enemies with this ability. However, this immunity is a double-edged sword, as it also means that Odin will have less chances to be repositioned to a safer spot. Odin's DPS is also pretty good, being able to deal a good amount of damage over the course of the battle. The knockback ability can be used to either keep enemies away or to isolate a traitless enemy, since the only enemy trait Odin doesn't target is traitless. A lack of curse immunity does mean that, despite resisting them, makes it somewhat difficult to use in levels with relic enemies since Odin's base health isn't the highest in the world. This also means that against traitless enemies, he can easily get worn down, making it somewhat tricky to use this unit when the major threats of the level are traitless enemies. Despite these rather small flaws, Odin is a very good unit, having a good effective health stat against most enemies in the game, and a good DPS stat means you will get a lot done with Odin. The Iron Legion exclusive leads with the Mighty Horse. Now why am I talking about entangled wooden horse javelins instead of the surprise Trojan fortress? Well, this is because both forms share the exact same stats, except the evolved form's force swing is 1 second longer, being 4.33 seconds, thus reducing their DPS from 5,112 to 4,755. It also makes it take longer to attack and makes it way more prone to missing their attack. In short, the second form is a direct downgrade. The Horse Javelin will only deal 68,000 damage against zombies and 1 damage to metal enemies. They will always knock back and slow their targets. Their slow effect lasts for 11.2 seconds. They have 81,600 health and have 2 knockbacks. They have a range of 440 and a cooldown of 181.2 seconds. They cost 48,000 to send out, have an attack frequency of 13.3 seconds, and have a speed of 8. This unit's main role is to slow zombie and metal enemies for a long period of time. They have a base uptime of 84.2%, which is very good, as their targets will rarely be able to move. If you really wanted, you could run either a slow medium or 2 slow small combos to achieve perma-slow, making them an amazing crowd control unit. This unit also has a decent amount of base health. However, their 2 knockbacks does mean that they will have a hard time repositioning if they get hit by a burrowing zombie. Their long attack frequency of 13.3 seconds also means it will take them a while to attack again, another way that they're vulnerable to attacks. Now about their metal matchup, they also work extremely well as crowd controllers and don't have to worry about any burrowing to sneak attack them. Since most metal enemies have a very low range, you can easily stall most metal enemies. They also help make the more difficult metals like Super Metal Hippo and Sir Metal Seal much more manageable, though they lack any ability to actually harm metal enemies, so this unit is for pure support. Like with Odin, you can use them to help isolate specific enemies in a level with metal or zombies, but even more so since they can slow. Being a target-only unit, they won't do anything outside of stages without metal or zombie enemies, but this unit's crowd control potential is amazing for those levels with said enemies. Though it is still strange how the first form is straight up better thanks to a faster force swing than their second form. Next is Mimi Luga, who is probably the most famous of the PC Ubers due to the fact that they are a Luga unit. Mimi Luga has 20,400 health, like most other Lugas, deals 48,450 damage, and has 3,388 DPS. They also have a very long cooldown of 324.53 seconds, or 5 minutes 24 seconds. They cost 4,500 to send out and have a range of 650. They have a speed of 4 and an attack frequency of 14.3 seconds with 1 knockback. The gimmick of this Luga is that they have a chance to inflict a bunch of status effects, a 30% chance to knock back, freeze for 4 seconds or 4.8 against treasure traits, weaken for 5 seconds or 6 seconds against treasure traits, and slow for 5 seconds, 6 against treasure traits. They also have a 30% chance to crit, giving them an effect of 4,404 DPS. The best way to describe this unit is Ebisu on steroids, as this unit has the same chance to inflict the statuses, but they last a lot longer, and this unit doesn't have a blind spot, plus area attack. They trade a double cash reward for critical hits. For their crit damage, they have a 30% chance to wipe a field of metal enemies clean, though they are not the most reliable crit unit thanks to their long attack frequency. However, thanks to their rather high base damage, a level 50 Mimaland Pasaland crit will deal enough damage to one-shot a 600% Sir Metal Seal, meaning that for a few people, they would use this unit as their Sir Metal Seal killer. Their other statuses are useful as well, but the fact that they're a 30% chance to activate makes it so that they aren't the most consistent statuser, but since they can inflict so many different effects, you will most likely get at least one per attack. Though like most Lugas, they share the same faults as many of them. mainly their low speed and their excruciatingly long cooldown. Their cooldown is so long that if you have a Mimiluga that dies, you will most likely never get another one out into the field again for the rest of the battle. This Uber is one of those Ubers that feels like a filler slot unit. You wouldn't really bring this unit for most strategies, but you would bring them because you can't think of anything else to add to your lineup. If you love using Ebisu, then you'll love using Mimiluga, or want to have a super backliner crit unit who has area attack, then this is the unit for you. Karasu Tengu 1010 Solution is the exclusive Uber for the Airbusters, and I'm just gonna say it now, this unit is absolutely busted against floating enemies. While their health is nothing to write home about, they deal such a huge amount of damage against floating enemies that it's just bonkers, dealing 183,600 damage with a staggering 41,413 DPS. They're also extremely fast, having a speed of 36. They also have a range of 460, allowing them to stay safe from most enemy attacks. They even have a 50% chance to freeze floating enemies for 3.6 seconds, giving them an uptime of 81.3%. This unit is also a great rebounder thanks to their somewhat high knockback count of 5 and them lacking any TBA. They also only have a cooldown of 71.2 seconds, meaning that you can easily get another one out into the battlefield if she somehow dies. Now, I mentioned that she is an exclusive Uber for the Airbusters, but we also have Assault Unit REI and their true form Flight Unit REI. Outside of the slightly longer force swing and having much less health comparatively thanks to Assault Unit REI's resist ability, 1010 is straight up better in every other category. The same even holds true for Flight Unit REI, since the main upgrade she gets is insane resist and a shorter TBA, but her attack frequency is still longer than 1010's. Even with talents, REI still deals 20k less damage and only has 3/4 the DPS of 1010. I feel like REI got her 40% chance to freeze as a callback to 1010 since that was her extra ability. In terms of a speedy unit with high range, offensive capability is usually more important than defensive capability, and 1010 blows REI out of the water with this factor. 1010 even has the base stats to be a decent backliner generalist rusher since 10k DPS from that far back against every other enemy is very impressive. This unit is probably in the ring for the top 3 best anti-floating units. Literally the only thing that holds her back is her rather long force swing of 3 seconds, meaning she can sometimes miss her attack. However, unlike the other units with the long force swing mentioned here, she has a very short backswing and her lack of TBA means it won't matter much if she does miss an attack, and an amazing generalist range rusher and a broken anti-floating unit. Hatsume Mikan or Geisha Mikan is the Uberfest exclusive, but unlike the other Uberfest exclusives, the unit's first form is objectively worse since they share the exact same cost and cooldown as the second form, but have much worse stats. Geisha Mikan is a crit sniper unit who has an LD of 400 to 800 with a standing range of 500. She has a 50% chance to land a crit that deals 64,600 damage, but has a rather low base health of 32,300. She is also immune to waves, has a cooldown of 134.52 seconds, and a price of 4,620 cents. She lacks any TBA, but her backswing is rather long, lasting 8.13 seconds. This does mean that in the event that she does get knocked back, she can immediately attack again. This unit's an okay sniper, but she relies on her crit damage to deal any sort of huge damage. Her wave immunity is more of a byproduct of being a fest unit, but it's useful against Coronium. If you don't have any other options for LD snipers, then she's okay at the job, but there are better options out there. You would mainly use her to take out metal enemies that are squatting behind tankier frontline enemies and incoming metal enemies. Super Metal Hippo may prove a slight issue for this unit, so using knockback immune shields like Rice Ball or metal slowers like Lollycat or Puppet Master are important. She isn't a game-bending fest unit like Mitama or Phonoar, but she's still pretty good in her own right. Now, Natsu Mikan is a fascinating unit, and she comes from the 1-year anniversary banner. She has an LD that goes from 400 to 1900, giving her a piercing range of 1400, making it the highest piercing range in the game, even more than Ramiel. This unit is to be used for pure support and base chip purposes, as she has the 3rd highest attack frequency in the game, only behind Green Shell and Egg Cat. She is also one of the few units that have a cost that doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, costing 5,908 cents to send out. She can weaken every enemy she hits to 1% power for 3 seconds or 3.6 seconds against treasure traits. This will stop any form of enemy offense for a short period of time, but her attack frequency of 38.53 seconds means this will only last for a short period of time. To also ensure you don't get many chances to have a second one on the field, she takes 324.52 seconds to recharge. Her damage isn't enough to clear most peons in the mid game, but in later levels, it isn't enough unless you invest into some levels. There really isn't much to this unit outside of their weaken and sniping support, but if you really wanted to have that weaken, then you can use her. Her wave immunity is once again a carryover from the fact that she is a fest unit, and it can help her survive, but it isn't anything big. Now I'm going to cover the collab units. The first units I will cover together are Momo and New Year Momo from the Bear Brick collaboration. I'm covering both at the same time because there is no difference between the two except for New Year Momo having double bounty, making it the objectively better version of the two. However, it doesn't change the fact that these units are terrible. The only thing they have going is their range, and in New Year Momo's case, double bounty, but they don't have the stats to do anything at all. These units can be slightly useful early game, but outside of that, this unit is a simple user rank dump. Neko Musume Cat is one of the 2 collab units featured in the Gigigi no Kitaru collaboration event. This unit is basically the same as Ray Cat from the Evangelion collab, sharing very similar stats, with minor tweaks made to things like a slightly longer cooldown and a slightly faster force wing. The main difference is their targets and the fact that Musume has an area attack. Against floating and zombie enemies, she has 48,875 health and deals 15,300 damage with 5.4k DPS. An okay offensive unit against zombies, especially for the early outbreaks, and can be useful against zombies in 4-star stages, but it faces stiff competition with Chief and Cadaver Bear Cat. While both of these units' offenses are much better than Musume's, Musume has the better defenses, allowing this unit to act as a more bulky but less offensive version of Cadaver Bear, but don't expect her to kill anything in Uncanny Legends, as the power level there is a bit too high for her. They're still useful for early to mid-game outbreaks of 4-star SOL, especially if you lack these 2 units. The last unit for the video is Kataro Cat and Nezumi Otoko Cat, the uber rare for the Gigigi collaboration event. Just like Neko Musume Cat, this unit shares many similarities with another Evangelion uber. This being with Shinji Cat, as they share every stat outside of cost, which Kataro costs 4,800 while Shinji costs 3,000 cents. Kataro can summon a level 3 wave instead of a level 2 wave, and their targets are different. Kataro has a 30% chance to knock back floating and zombie enemies with Z-Killer. While their floating knockback isn't the most useful, knocking back zombies is. Being able to catch burrowing zombies and then sending them back some distance means they won't cover as much ground with their burrow. With a level 3 wave, they can easily snipe zombies that are just outside their range. Their Z-Killer also ensures that if they do deal enough damage, the zombie will stay dead. Also, another reason why they work against most zombies is because most zombie enemies have much less range than them, allowing them to stay safe from enemy attacks. Even if they are attacked, they have a good health stat of 96,900, allowing them to take hits if they absolutely have to, but they only have 2 knockbacks. This does make it so that they can't really reposition all too much, but this unit is a solid anti-zombie unit. You could make them work against floating enemies, but since most floating enemies have a higher range than them, it isn't really worth trying to knock back floating enemies with this unit. And with that, those were all of the exclusive units that are featured in the PC version of the Battle Cats. However, since the PC version is no longer able to play, these units have been lost to time, but thanks to the efforts of the Battle Cats community, we have all the information needed to imagine what and how these units would operate, as well as the cool, unique designs they have. At the beginning, I said I was going to rank these units in a tier list, and here's the list. Bun Bun and the Momo twins really don't have anything going for them, and their low stats simply make them user rank food. Outside of these 3 though, all of these units have something going for them. Natsumi-kan suffers heavily from her excruciatingly long TBA. While her weekend can come in a pinch, the fact that she has an even longer attack frequency than Cat God makes it so that her offensive and even support isn't there for a long stretch of time. Those who have watched me for a while, you would know how much I don't like Cat God as a unit, and this unit having an even longer attack frequency makes this unit even more painful to use. At least her status effect is pretty good. This unit only escapes the D tier because her weekend can come in clutch on a rare occasion. Neko Musume Cat is a niche anti-zombie unit, but still pretty serviceable in most zombie levels, but falls off hard once you get Chief or Cadaver Bear Cat. Type Monchiros forms are ranked differently, and since the second form is objectively better unless you need a wave immune attacker, this first form falls into C tier. Furious doesn't have many outstanding stats, but the fact that it has a good attack rate along with the wave immune niche means it gets to sit nicely in B tier, and would probably be a top 5 Dragon Emperor. Monshiro's second form falls near the bottom of B tier. The second form has some good offensive stats, but that long TBA can make her slightly difficult to use, but her wave slow is super useful for when it comes to play. Kitaro Cat and Nezumi Otoko Cat are solid melee tanks and can deny zombie enemies area, but they aren't anything too special. Mimiluga is honestly a pretty fun unit to use, but I wouldn't say they're great or amazing, but being able to shut down the field for a short period of time will never not be fun for some. Noble is an okay anti-angel unit, but her really long attack frequency means you won't really shut down angels for a long period of time. Doesn't mean she can't work, just that she needs some extra support. Honda is like Aphrodite, but has a higher cost and longer cooldown, but in exchange gets Base Destroyer. Though this does mean that you need to put more effort into keeping him alive, since his knockback immunity and singular natural knockback does mean he gets no chances to reposition. Geisha Mikan is Nanaho Light. She doesn't attack as often and has much worse defenses, but can nuke every metal enemy on the field in a single hit if she does crit. Haruhime has a really long range, being able to snipe enemies from afar and weaken angel enemies from a safe distance, as well as work as a wave immune attacker. Isamboshi's ability to easily accumulate and weaken the melee angel enemies means that the angel threats like Angelic Gori and Borfim are much easier to handle. Entangled Horse Javelins is an amazing crowd controller against their targets. While they may not have the health to really tank too many hits, the fact their slow lasts that long, along with the fact that they can push out burrowed zombies, is amazing. Don't forget to use the first form, as that is objectively better. Catmate has really solid stats, with a nice base health and can dish out some very good damage. However, her two main faults are that really low range of 260 and the fact that she has 2 knockbacks, meaning she can't really reposition if she's in danger. Now for the 2 S tiers. First is Odin, whose effective health against most of the enemies in the game is really high and can help reposition enemies thanks to his knockback ability. The offensive capability is also amazing, being on a similar level as Awakened Ururan, though when compared to the other Almighties, I would say that he's in the middle of the pack in terms of the Almighty ranking. Though that is just more so of the fact that like half or more of the Almighties are S tier Ubers and have more things going on than Odin. Now this really shouldn't come as a surprise, but 1010 easily is the best PC exclusive Uber. 1010 I would argue is a top 3 anti-floating Uber due to her absurd stats against them, and even outside of floating has great offensive stats for a ranged rusher and a very short cooldown, allowing her to get back into the field very quickly. Also, 10k DPS with that kind of range, she could easily shred through enemies with that kind of damage output, and this is just her level 30 stats. At level 60, she has 19k base DPS. To put into perspective on how insane that is, the only units with a higher base DPS are target only units, units who have far less range than her, and single target units. The only exception to this is Almighty Anubis, who even then needs to be given a huge supply of NP to max out their TBA reduction talents, along with their attack talents. So imagine if you had a unit like Anubis, who is now considered to be one of the best Almighties, but made it so you need less investment, a much faster cooldown, and a faster force swing to achieve similar power. That is 1010, and keep in mind that, like all the other PC units, never even got a true form, so imagine the sheer power she could have had if she did have one. Literally, her only downsides are her somewhat long force swing and low health pool. Outside of that, this unit is genuinely like a top 20 Uber minimum. And with that, that is my final ranking of the PC exclusive units. Agree or disagree? Well, let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, let me know who your personal favorite out of the PC units are. And if you enjoyed this analysis of these units, then be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as this lets me know that this is the sort of content you guys want to see. Also, shout out to Oppenheimer for being a gold member, and shout out to all my other channel members. If you want to receive a shout out, then become a member today, and if you're a silver member or higher, you can have a unit of your choice beside your name and receive a personal shout out. You can also get an exclusive role on my Discord server, for which you can find a link in the description down below. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day.